Hey, what's up, everybody? This is KG from Jaw7. Welcome to another video. In this video, we're going to do a interview with the winning team from this past weekend's 3 versus 3 at Stronghold Games. This past Saturday, we had an enormous big turnout, 20 team cap, 3 versus 3 for new rotation and temporal forces. And right now, I have the team leader, team captain, the pretty much the brains of the entire team, John, with us. John, thank you for being out here today. And pretty much, how you feeling, man, about the dub this past weekend, brother?
I appreciate it. Yeah, that event was crazy. I feel surprised. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think we were gonna do as well as we did to start. We even had a pretty funny team name to begin with, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
no, it was great. Temporal Forces, the format's so cool. The decks are fun. Zard isn't as busted as people think. I don't know. It
Uh-huh.
was a good event. Super fun. Super cool to play with my friends, my girlfriend, obviously, and Jesus.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just want to pretty much congratulate you for the dub as a team. And John and I talked we faced each other round one, right? The team, his team and I team, and John already like had it like, well, okay, if I win, great. If I don't, he was gonna do he was gonna play at Magic at gaming.
Oh yeah, I was gonna go play Pioneer right after.
Right, yeah, 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 and pretty much at the end of that event, I reminded John like, hey, well, I guess you're not going to play Pioneer going into the finals. So yeah, so okay, cool, man. So before we kind of recap the day, just I guess John, just tell a little bit about yourself. Do you play any card games? Are you just the Pokemon? What's the history? What's the background, man? What do you what do you do? Or as far as card games, what do you roll at the moment?
Cool, yeah. So I grew up playing Yu-Gi-Oh. That was my main game. That was the thing that was accessible. I
Hmm.
never really looked at anything else. I was probably like every other kid who like played Pokemon with their friends. You know, we'd get some packs every once in a while and just play the fakest of formats, just biggest thing, most HP, whatever, no energy. So I knew a little bit of Pokemon. I played every card game. I played Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, One Piece, even like Dragon Ball Masters, Fusion World, all that. I love card games. It's probably my favorite thing in the world.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no. So I got into Pokemon during the end of Pika ROM format when those League Battle decks came out. I remember finding them at Walmart, and I actually went to the Pocket when it was like an Alton still.
Hmm.
So that was like the introduction to it. I liked it. I was one of the only people that actually liked ADP, ironically. Um, those cards were cool as heck to me. But no, yeah, I've always liked Pokemon. I like a more simplistic game where like sequencing is what rewards the player for winning, and I think that's really really cool. Where like if your brain is a little bit bigger than your opponent, you're probably gonna win the match.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was gonna ask, do you play Lorcana as well? No, right? I didn't hear Lorcana.
So I touched it.
Uh
I
huh.
played the online sim that people play. I think it's called Pixelborn.
Hmm.
I loved the what is it? The Steel Song deck. That deck was cool as heck, but I just couldn't. I don't know. I'm not a Disney person, so I couldn't get into the game. I know a couple
Yeah.
of my buddies play it, but it looks fun. But I don't think I'll touch that. I might touch that Star Wars Unlimited game that came out recently. I've
Hmm.
heard good things. I
Yeah.
played Hearthstone competitively, so that game's similar to Hearthstone in that sense.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. Yeah. So as you can tell, John's pretty much has a great history as far as the cardboard or what he plays. So and right now you're currently rocking MTG at the moment, right? Magic. You're playing Magic Pioneer or
Yeah, I've been playing a whole lot of Pioneer. The owners over at Gaming, or the guy that runs it, he has a really good community over there. They run 3 tourneys a week, and
Mhm.
it's been so much fun playing what's arguably the best deck. It's called Is It Phoenix.
Oh,
I know
okay.
I'm a degenerate. I play a card that says draw 3 for 1 mana. It's insane. Um, I know that's nothing in Pokemon, right? That's like, oh, that sucks. That's a what is that? Hop, Nemona, those
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's been
Okay.
fun.
Oh, cool, man. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. So let's talk about the beginning, man. The beginning of all this. Pretty much, how did Team Valley formed, or how did you and Jesus and Stephanie pretty much come together? And what's the story, man? What happened there?
For sure. No, yeah, he messages me maybe like a week or two,
Uh huh.
maybe 3 before the event, and I'd completely forgotten about it. And I was like, "Hey, do you want to play the 3v3? Are you gonna play, or do I know anyone that wants to play?" And I was like, "Well, I haven't played in a bit. I don't think I've played Pokemon since this past weekend, like for 2 months prior. It's been a minute." And I was like, I don't know if I'm the right guy for you." And I also had a trip recently, so I actually came back from a flight from Ohio on the Thursday before the 3v3. I
Hmm.
actually flew up to go visit Full Grip Games. I'm sure Pokemon people know who they are.
Yep. Yeah.
They had extended a job offer, and I don't think I'm gonna take it. I love the Valley. I realized, cool dudes. Met Andrew Mahone, saw his recording studio, so I get to hold that over everybody else that knows him.
Wow,
Um,
that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's
yeah,
yeah. Like anyone that's in the Pokemon community TCG, they know who Andrew Mahomes is in full grip game. So that's pretty cool. Okay, continue. That's awesome.
for sure. Yeah, it was a super sick experience. But yeah, no. He messages me. I tell him, hey, I don't know. I have a trip, and then we're like, you know what? Screw it. Why not? So, as you know, or most people know, Steph, my girlfriend, I didn't want to play the 3v3 a team environment without her because I think it would be the best place for us to play together.
Hmm.
So I told him, hey, I was like, if you get me, she's my package deal. She comes with me, and he's like, that's fine, no worries. So I was like, sure. Unfortunately, Muse rotated out. That was her deck,
Hmm.
so it was a little hard to like get her stuck onto something.
Hmm.
But we figured, like Zard was the easiest thing. Jesus is really good at Zard, and I'm just okay. I like to say I know I'm a lot better at card games than I give myself credit for, but I like to say I'm okay at card games. So he was just like, yeah, I just want to play with you, and so we waited with no practice. I mean, we showed up to Stronghold, right?
Uh huh. Wow. Okay, so I know, yeah, Stephanie or Steph's been working with Mew for the longest time, and yeah, Jesus was working with the Zard, and then yeah, you picked the pretty much the most controlled deck in the format at the moment,
Yeah,
and yeah, I would have not have picked you on that, the Block Snorlax, and right now on my screen, guys, you can see both deck lists. Now, this is not specifically their deck list. It's just an example of a Block Snorlax and a Zard deck, a Zard Arvin deck. So we'll get into that more a little bit later. But yeah, so there you go. That's pretty much how that team formed, and I know Jesus was looking for a squad at the time on South Texas. I know he posted it. I'm not sure if he got any bites, but that's pretty cool that he reached out to you. And you three just kind of showed up at Stronghold and okay, let's get it together. So let's talk about deck selection. Did y'all at any point? Well, it didn't seem like it, but did y'all just talk about what you're gonna play, or y'all just said like, okay, this is what I'm gonna play, and this is it? Like, was there any thought process behind it, or especially you for the Block Snorlax? Like, anything you want to say about that, or deck selection wise?
for sure. Yeah, so there was actually. I know Jesus is like super Zard. I mean, his deck's basically max rarity, prettiest thing in the room. But with Steph and myself not having a whole bunch of experience, like the last time we really tried playing was back in November during the San Antonio regional.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we're like super lost on the format. She really liked the Giratina deck, but not the Arceus Giratina deck because we had no like experience with that. She knew a little bit more of like the Lost Box version.
Mm-hmm.
So she wanted to do that or Zard. So for her, we just ended up, like I said, doing probably the simplest thing to just get your feet back on the ground, just relearning the game as quickly as possible. And Rare Candy Zard's pretty simple. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I've always had this really bad problem of being able to pick a deck for an event. This has been true for every single card game I've ever played, uh, unless there is a be-all end-all deck, which in this format it's appeared to be Charizard.
Mm-hmm.
So with that information, I was like, okay. Back when I was trying to play Block Snorlax initially, like during that regional time, I was always told, "Oh, don't play Block Snorlax for locals. It's a super slow deck. You're never gonna like win games. Like people are gonna realize what you're playing and then install you out." And I was like, "Okay, that's kind of strange, but let's look at the deck." I looked at a couple lists on Limitless. Thank God for that resource. If I wouldn't have that, who knows where the hell I'd be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, yeah. So I looked at that, and my three options were Zard, Block Snorlax, and ironically enough, I was taking a page out of Billy's book with Espathra. I really, really, really like that Pokemon as an attacker,
Uh-huh.
and putting Zard in a best deck to beat type format, which is cool because I think everyone realized that. So there was a lot less Zard in the room than I thought there would have been.
Mm-hmm.
Taking that into account, I was like, okay, I showed Jesus the Spathra deck. He obviously didn't like it. I showed him my Zard list, which was playing the 1/1 Ghastly Gengar line with, I think it's called Nethergate, the ability to switches.
Yes, yes, yes,
I
yes.
was respecting Snorlax. I thought that deck was crazy, but I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, I've never played the deck before. Spoilers, I've never played this deck once in my life. Um, so yeah, I wanted to respect the deck because I thought there'd be more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the literal night before, I just sleeved up Snorlax. I liked the idea of being controlling. I
Uh-huh.
think I have a lot to like attribute it to me playing Magic recently,
Mm-hmm.
where I feel like my brain is a lot bigger than it was maybe like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like the Snorlax list. I have Crushing Hammers in the list because I thought that card was absurd because you can loop it in your deck, so you have infinite Crushing Hammers
Mm-hmm.
on top of having an infinite deck, which is something I did in top four, which was really cool. But yeah, no, I was like, you know what, screw it. My brain's a little bit bigger this weekend. I'll go ahead and play Snorlax.
Wow. And you don't mind me asking, what A spec did you rock? Was it Hero's Cape or?
100% the Hero's Cape. I genuinely think that's the best A spec out of Temporal Forces.
Mhm.
100 plus HP is crazy in any deck. Like you said, I was watching your video that, a little bit ago. 100 HP on an Archeops to not get a one shot. 100
Mhm.
HP on a Zard, make it 430, force them to have the Lost Vacuum. And a lot of people either aren't playing Vacuum or are playing one, and they'll probably just throw it away because they don't realize how strong that specific A spec is. And it just wins games on its own, which is the A spec I wanted Steph to play in her Zard list, but we didn't have enough testing with it.
Mhm. Yeah, I have to agree. Now that path is really gone. Like vacuums are like, yeah, they're a thing a little bit, but I mean, people are just running one, and so yeah, that's definitely a good call there. Now I'm looking at a block Snorlax list, just a list in general. Did you happen to run the Defiant Vest in that list? I'm assuming one or.
I did not actually. I know Brian, who's the other Block Snorlax player in the room, was on that probably that similar list. I didn't see the merit for that card. I
Mhm.
understood it's like strong, but I just liked just simple bravery charms and then just crazy consistency with the rest of the deck.
Mhm. Great. Yeah, and I know for sure in round one when I saw you play against Joel with the hammers, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, that's a scary deck because, like you said, you can like just get it back when you need to later on. And I'm sure you played what, three, maybe four in the deck.
I'm on four hammer. That
Four.
card is, yeah. Law of averages suggests two of those are going to hit heads, and that's all I usually need. If I need more, then hey, so Silene loops them all back into my deck.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And then like in the next set, like for sure, like Enhanced Hammer's coming back too. So you don't need a whole lot of those, right? But one is enough to like destroy Lugia. Like, but yeah, that's
Oh
crazy.
yeah.
Crazy, crazy. Wow, man. So if is it safe to say like out of all the deck cards in the Black Snorlax, was that your favorite card to use, or did you have a particular card that you just always liked because it was just clutch in your
So
games?
let me actually grab the deck. I have it here with me.
Mm,
It's been sitting by my desk the whole time just because it's funny that I played this of all things. Honestly, my favorite card in the whole deck, it's probably tied between two. I really like Silene for infinite everything, anything I want.
mm-hmm,
Putting back pal pads to keep looping my supporters. But one of the coolest cards in the deck, which is from the new set, is Rescue Board. This card is disgustingly strong. Starting just some awful like Rotom or something, and just being like, okay, cool, this is getting out of the active. People will boss the Snorlax or boss around the Snorlax, pull up a Rotom, soften it up, and I'm like, cool, you're not going to be able to do that again because I'm counting your resources. I'm going to rescue board away my Rotom, play a different supporter. You're not going to be able to kill the Rotom now because you don't have another boss, and then the next turn I'm going to penny it, and now you're just stuck in this loop, and you only have so many bosses. So Rescue Board was probably my favorite card this past weekend.
wow. Okay. And I'm assuming some people tried that strategy on you. You're like, okay, yeah, that's not going to work. Like,
Oh, 100%. I had people who, thankfully, that Rotom has 190 HP. They'll hit it with a Zard for 180, and I'm like, cool. I'm going to rescue board away.
wow, wow, crazy. Did you? I'm assuming. Did you run a Mawile in your deck? Or the
I
no?
didn't. I know Dylan had told me about that,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't see the need for it. I just played the super, like, cookie cutter, 4 Snorlax.
Mm-hmm.
I like that other build, too, that can actually win the game, like with Radiant Charizard and Pidgeot and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
That one felt a little too big brain for me. I don't think I'm at that point mentally to play that kind of a build, but it's a lot less consistent. Once you're set up, yeah, you feel like best deck in the room, but the setup is a lot more inconsistent, and I just like straightforward, just looping my Snorlaxes, looping my Bravery Charms and Pennies, and just super straightforward, really good Pokemon.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I'm assuming. I think later in the tournament, I saw you. I think in your list you have a Chiyu. I was gonna say.
Yeah, I have the cool little fish.
Yeah. So I guess just talking about that card, was there like did it felt awkward at times to like bring it out early, or did you felt like okay, this is the best time to bring it out? I mean, surely it was a good like late game when like they're kind of stuck with just sitting there, right? But
Oh,
uh,
for sure. So I feel like I could have played with this card a little bit better. It had a lot to do with, once again, this weekend was the very first time I ever played this deck. I didn't test it. I didn't play it online.
mhm,
I built the deck. It looked good. So towards the end of the tournament, I was learning how to use Chi a little more effectively. But early on, yeah, it was just crushing hammer my opponent's board, loop the crushing hammers if needed, make sure they have no more energy left. The even though I don't know the format enough, I do enough research to realize what everyone's energy counts are and like average counts for supporters and all that stuff. So once I realized that there's no more energy, especially if they spread it out a little too thin, so now there's no way a single energy gets to attacking, Chiyu just mills the rest of their deck at the end, and it's only because I can loop those crushing hammers that I was able to do stuff like that.
mhm. Wow, definitely. Well, for somebody that's kind of just like sleeved up the deck, no, it's kind of crazy that you can like kind of just kind of calculate all those outs. But then again, it's with that history of playing cardboard like for quite a while, like it's just pretty much another day in the office for mostly any card players, or you.
For
So
sure, it really, really helped.
yeah, so that's cool, man. Okay, so let's kind of move on to the next topic. Let's just kind of summarize your Swiss matches in a nutshell. So pretty much, did any match that you and I guess to my understanding, you didn't drop a single game in Swiss, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
Nope. Yeah,
No.
I went undefeated in Swiss and Top Cut, and so did Jeebus as well.
Wow, cool. All right. Well, then, if with that being said, was there any like close games you had in Swiss that was like, okay, yeah, this player knows what he's doing. They know the matchup. And was there anything in that match that kind of like, okay, you know what, like, yeah, this card got me in, or anything that you remember in Swiss that kind of like, yeah, this was close match.
So at least for me, the the biggest reason why I ended on this deck was the whole no one's going to know how to play against this. People refuse to respect it. People refuse to learn the matchup, and I get it. It's hard. It's sleepy. Like it's Snorlax, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't want to learn how to play control matchup, but unfortunately, they exist. I know control isn't like always the biggest thing in Pokemon, but when it is, it's a little oppressive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't really have a hard matchup at all.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, I was the one finishing before my teammates on my matches,
Mm-hmm.
except in top four. But no, so like I have my tournament report here, and I know round one I played against y'all's team.
Mm-hmm.
That was a little scary just because I had to learn my deck on the fly. But once I got it down, I learned it. Round two we played against I think that's Root's team, got those right.
Yeah,
Uh,
with Alan and yeah.
Yeah, I played Alan in player B, and I expected to play Amir, and I was really scared. Thankfully, he was not on Amir. Uh, round three was Leo's team. I played against Puff. So one of the only things that makes this hard. So okay, I lied. I didn't really have hard matchups. I had one hard Pokemon to play against, and that was Skwovet.
Oh, okay.
Skwovet made my life hell. That Pokemon is so insane because I can go infinite, so can he.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that Pokemon is that. Whoever was playing Skwovet in those Arceus Giratina decks, yeah. And I played against three of them, so those were pretty difficult, I guess I could say.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And then you played. I mean, you played the team again. Did you play? You played against Puff's team in Top Cut, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, we played them in top four. That was also tough, but I'm telling you, Jesus is just insane at Zard. He is so good at the deck. He got to play. He played Caesar twice, beat him twice, which is crazy impressive.
Mm-hmm.
It must be like rarity diff. Like his deck's just prettier and more expensive.
Yeah, and that's just yeah, and I believe that's how I was running the mirror as well as a Zard. I think yeah, because they did play against him. Lost to him though,
Mhm.
but okay, wow, man. And the other thing I was gonna ask you is talking about the team aspect of the 3v3. Did y'all had a discussion about lettering? Like, okay, you know what, I'll be B, and was there any talk about that as well before the tournament or at any given point? And if so, was there what was the thought process and kind of just like how did y'all determine what letters, or it was just kind of like RNG? Okay, I'm A, you B, or C.
So yeah, no, I had thought about discussing it, but we didn't actually set anything in stone until I literally signed us up as Team 20 when I got to Stronghold. We were the last
Wow.
team to be able to sign up, and I had asked Jesus really quick. I was like, "Hey, what do you think we should be?" And he asked me if I wanted to be B. And so there's two reasons that's correct to put the Snorlax player on B. One, I believe in a 3v3, the player who is player B will either be the best player on the team or will have the ego thinking that they are the best player on the team. And you can use that to your advantage both ways. So usually people who are the best player on the team slash having the biggest ego, they're going to be on Zard or something to beat Zard. For some reason, this deck just beats everything. So it just made sense to put Snorlax on B.
Hmm.
And then after that, A and C, we just kind of coin flipped. We figured they'd put a little bit of a better player on A, and then they'll put the weaker player on C. So since Jesus has been playing the game for so long and consistently, we put him on A, myself on B to beat the Zards, and the counters to Zards, and then we put Steph on C because we thought she would play the weaker players. Jokes on us, she played against Billy round one. Um, so there was that. But no, yeah, so that was kind of the order. I was hoping Steph hit the weaker players. Unfortunately, she hit a bunch of bad matchups. Like right after that round one against Billy, she played against Arctina, which is just another bad matchup for Zard.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that was our mentality going forward. Strong player A, myself to be able to counter the Zards and counter the Zard counters, and then Steph on the weaker players, hopefully to take a bite or two out of their team.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that's not a bad strategy at all. And I was very fascinated with the 3v3 because, like, I know Yu-Gi-Oh does 3v3, so I was very curious how, like, and I'll be honest, like, some of us, you and Joel, we're just like, okay, we're just gonna play our games because we know what we're doing. But that did come into play a lot, just like when you second guess yourself, like, hey, what do you think here, or the math, stuff like that. So. I
Mhm.
mean, I know playing y'all round one. I know you and Jesus kind of talked a lot too about energy count and whatnot against Lugia, against my deck, and so clearly, you being letter B was probably the best choice for your team and for that day because, if Steph was next to you, you can help her, and then if Jesus needed you, pretty much, or vice versa, you're in the middle. So, and then was block Snorlax. So, how many Zars did you run into in Swiss? You playing block Snorlax against a Zard?
So oddly enough, I played Zero,
Okay.
which was crazy. I thought I was going to play against a lot, and I was excited because they're literally buys for the deck.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I played against Zero. I guess my reasoning for putting myself at B and making people like check their egos with Zard on middle was just wrong. But I mean, it worked out at the end. But yeah, no Zards for me. It was mostly for Jesus and Steph. They played a bunch of Zards
Hmm.
throughout the tourney.
Yeah, yeah, and then of course both Steph and Jesus were pretty much both Zard players, so it's like, all right, cover the perimeter for Snorlax.
Yeah, basically they were just holding the fort around me. It
Holding
was really
far.
funny to think about it like that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's crazy. Wow. So no. How about Top Cut? Was there any Zards in Top Cut for you? No, right? Like I know you played Artina, and oh, you did. No, you didn't play Zard. I think you played.
No, yeah, I played 8 rounds of Pokemon with no Zard matchups.
Hmm.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I did. I mean, I did put a lot of people on Zard because it's just, especially people that play the card game along or just like kind of hesitant about change because it is kind of weird for people to change their decks like on the fly.
For sure.
So I know I kind of predicted there'd be a lot of Lugia because everyone has it, and a lot of Zard because everyone's like, okay, just take up Battle VIP and put the Poffins, and then there you go. Like
Yeah.
so. And surprisingly enough, I know I talked to a player, Benijo. He ran Zard, but I think he was the only Bib Zard, like the only one, and he loves Bibarel, like the line for Zard. So it's like
Oh
that.
yeah, Steph was actually on B-Barrel Zard because we really like the code breaking cipher combo with B-Barrel, so we had her on that.
Ah, okay, but yeah. So okay, so let's talk about Top Cut. You're pretty much going. I think y'all were what going undefeated into Top Cut. Were you the number one seed or?
Yeah,
Um,
we were number one seed. We ended up drawing with one of the other Cascade teams to give them an ID into top eight
mhm.
because we were locked in after round four. We were the only undefeateds, which we didn't actually know until we like were about to sit down for last round. They're like, "Oh, we're X1," and I was just like, "Oh, yeah, let's just draw one, so they don't know how the heck to play against my deck,
Mhm.
and two, you just guarantee them the top cut spot."
Mhm. Right. Okay. So now going into Top Cut, top eight. Who'd you go against, or what team? And then what deck did you play against particularly?
Yeah, so round one of top eight was a little stress inducing, I'm not gonna lie. So we played against Emilio's team, so I know that's Emilio, Brian, and I can't remember the other individual's name, but he was also
Oh,
on guard.
yes, that was he's a newcomer player, Jaime. I want to say his name's Jaime. Yeah, Jaime.
Okay, that sounds about right. I know I'd met him a couple times when I was working at the shop, but yeah, it was their team. I was scared because Emilio's on Lost Tina, which is supposed to be the best matchup for for them. Like they're supposed to be able to beat Snorlax because all the switches, Jet Energies, and all that. Thankfully, I'm playing Temple in my deck. I believe that's the name of the card, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, Temple of Sinnoh. I
Hmm.
was playing that, so it makes that a little bit easier. But I was more worried for my matches on the side. I knew if my match went long enough, I'd be able to win. But my A and C teammates, I was really worried for them. Steph was on a mirror, and he's on Pidgeot, which I think might be a little more favored because you can just get to the cards that you need, like bosses and stuff for the mirror.
Yeah.
And then Jesus, unfortunately, was playing against Snorlax, which is, like I
Right.
said, the only other Snorlax in the room. Um, I was really, 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 really worried for him. But he told me that the only reason he was able to win that matchup was because he watched me play the deck all day, and with the way I was playing, Brian and I are very similar in the way we play games. We both like make decisions very similarly,
Hmm.
so he knew how to play the matchup. The biggest thing, and this isn't even just in Top Cut, this is in the whole tourney. Fluttermane needs to be in your Zard deck. I cannot stress this enough.
Hmm.
Fluttermane was the most insane card for Jesus all day. He started it against Brian and just outright won. That card can attack. That card negates the block skill, so whenever you need to retreat into a Zard to take the knockout to keep just applying pressure for the prizes. On top of that, Pokemon being able to spread damage and do 90 to active was just insane. That card was the best thing for him in that matchup for sure.
Wow. Yeah. And it's interesting because I I when I first tested with Joel and the Fluttermane, and this is kind of just for the giggles. I mean, we kind of overvalued it because we thought the ability was all the board. So we're
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's like no, it's just the active. But and then when I heard about that, I was kind of like, oh, I was really honestly, I was not impressed. I'm like, well, okay, like I mean, I'll just evolve on the bench. What's so big about that? But you see, starting game wise, like you may not have control of that. And I guess for Zard, it's kind of annoying because they got to spend resources to retreat or waste their one switch they have in their list. And so, yeah, I can see why. I can see why that. I know Jesus was telling me about that the Fluttermane was really clutch, and I can see that because it does do damage. Some people prefer the Clef Key, but I'm like, look, that's 10 damage, like, and lock the bench. I mean, sure, I guess, but it's good to know that Fluttermane kind of put in some work for Jesus, and yeah, against the Black Snorlax, there you go. So good for that. At any given point during that match, did he consult you or talk to you about like some outs or anything like that, or he just kind of
Oh,
like,
100%.
oh, okay,
Yeah, yeah. He's like, hey, what do I do here? In terms of like when he should apply pressure, and I told him I was like, look, you need to force your opponent to penny every single turn because if they're not going to penny you, like if they're pennying you every single turn, that means they're not playing another supporter, so they're not furthering their game plan in getting rid of your resources, forcing something to be active, and stuff like that. And he was just like, okay, well, I'll just keep swinging, I'll keep applying pressure, and just force penny every turn. And I think that's kind of what just won him the match, just like knowing that, knowing what cards are roughly in the deck. Because I mean, everyone got to see my entire deck list, especially starting top eight because of how like long my games are going.
mm-hmm.
So he for the most part knew what was in the deck. I don't think Brian was on crushing hammers, and I think that was a mistake. I think this card is integral into the deck
Mm-hmm.
just because of like the way it forces opponents to super rod if they don't have it or you hit off Misfortune Sisters. So it gave Jesus a lot more outs in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, he took a lot from like our matches in Swiss and just, I mean, he played the game beyond perfectly.
Well, that's good, and also to hear that. Yeah, I mean, it's really rare that a Snorlax like loses to Zard, but I mean, sometimes it does happen, and but that's pretty good. So, assuming in top eight, you all 3-0'd that team. I'm assuming Steph took her win as well.
Yeah, so she didn't get to finish her match because Jesus and I got to win.
Oh, okay.
I got to actually no, I'm wrong. No, she unfortunately lost because again the Pidgeot gets to just search for boss after boss after boss in the mirror. So that was tough. But on the good thing is we went into time, and on the last turn of mine where I could have gone into time, like where it would have just been like a draw, which who knows how they would have decided that, especially considering my deck doesn't take prizes. I had the switch cart into Chi-Yu, attach an energy, mill their last two,
Mm-hmm.
or I had Penny or something like that. But yeah, they had two cards left in deck because of how often I was hitting them, and they were drawing with Radiant Greninja and stuff. So I was just like, oh well, if I pass here, I don't know if I'm gonna win or not. So I'm just gonna mill there too, and thankfully my hand is giant, and decks don't play hand disruption right now either, which is absurd to me. Hand disruption is so strong in this game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool, man. Well, that's yeah, that seemed like that was pretty intense there for that matchup. Okay, and going to top four, who do we go against the top four? Was it a Cascade team? I know there's a bunch of them. Yeah.
There were like what, three Cascade teams, I think, which is
Yes,
crazy.
yeah, there's three, and like I said in my other video, like it was, I was not expecting that. I know a handful of them, like Ozzy and them, they come over, him and Marco, but it was pretty much their entire crowd, plus pretty much anyone that just goes locally to Brownsville. But to see all of them, I'm like, okay, yeah, like that's because I believe there was one team that didn't wear the shirts, so technically,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and there were, I think it was Christopher and somebody else. But yeah, there was like three of them, and then another team that was from Brownsville that play at the shop, and they're all friends with the teams, right? But they just, I guess that day didn't buy a shirt and get one. But yeah, I was like, wow, four teams. But so in top four,
Crazy.
yeah, crazy. So top four, talk about that matchup. If you remember who it was against and what was your
Oh,
deck?
for sure.
Yeah.
It was a rematch versus I like to say Leo's team because he's the standout player to me, even though Caesar and Puff are on that.
Okay.
Um,
So it's Pocket pretty much against Pocket top four.
yeah, so we played them in Swiss, and that
Uh-huh.
matchup was actually really scary in Swiss because, so as I mentioned earlier, Squovid is a crazy card.
Mm-hmm.
Puff recognized, not early, but at the end of the game, that he can just infinite his deck versus mine with my Pidgeot. So we were gonna draw. Jesus thankfully wins his match against Caesar in Swiss, and then so it all kind of boiled down to what Steph was doing. And since I know the Lugia deck pretty decently, I gave her a couple pointers here and there. Kill one of the Archeops, maybe if you can hit a Luminions, play around Collapse Stadium. So she was playing the matchup super well, and she won that matchup for us, which was probably the biggest win for us, propelling us, to go undefeated. Because if we didn't win there, who knows what would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I credit her a lot into that win, especially playing Leo, beating Leo, probably one of the better players in the Valley, multiple like cup wins and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and on his pet deck, right? He's on Lugia. So I was nervous going into top four because there's a thing that we like to call, I don't know if y'all have it in Pokemon, but there's a Swiss curse. So if you beat the team or player in Swiss, you are going to get destroyed by them in Top Cut.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's
Yeah, there is something like that. Usually it's yeah, it does exist. I mean, you go undefeated and then you go to top cut and then you like even Billy will say you just scrub out, you get knocked out in top eight. But yeah,
yeah,
something
it's
like
like their revenge. It's scary.
uh-huh.
Uh, Going on that, what you said about Billy, Jesus was really mad at me saying that we were going to win the event the second we made Top Cut. I was like, look, we went undefeated in Swiss. We're really good players. We have the mentality. We have the want to win. We're going to win. And he was like, no, stop saying that. You're going to jinx it. And right before top 8 starts, he said a sentence about saying that we're going to win. And I was like, look, now I got you saying it by accident. He's like, oh man. And I was like, no, you didn't jinx it. Like, think of it, think it, think it, think it. We're going to win. We're going to win.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so that rematch was really scary. Leo got his revenge on Steph. He opened insane. Steph gave him 2 mulligans, and we were joking. He was like, "Oh, I have 2 Archeops in hand," and I was like, "Shut up! No, you don't. Show me the Ultra Ball." And he shows the 2 Archeops and Ultra Ball, and I was like, "Oh, well, must be nice for Lugia to start the perfect way."
Uh-huh.
So we needed to really focus on Jesus and Mai's matchup because that one looked. When Lugia opens everything against Lax, it's pretty hard, especially with being as good of a player he is with the deck. So yeah, again, Jesus just plays the mirror so well against Caesar again, and ends up winning relatively quickly. And this is one of the only times my matches went the long way. But again, it's because of that Squovit.
Mm-hmm.
So I recognize that the deck can loop a couple cards pretty late into the tourney. So if you have like say Palpad, Silene, Team
Mhm.
Yelcheer, and a Crushing Hammer,
Mm-hmm.
you can loop all 4 of these cards to have infinite Crushing Hammers. So once you start infinite Crushing Hammer them, and you get rid of their Super Rod, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
You get to a point where they can't swing anymore. Excuse me. You count their energy, and you just go, okay, cool. You can't swing anymore. I promote my Chi-Yu, mill, and that's how the game's gonna end. And so, uh, that deck plays a really crazy card called Iron Leaves. So I respected that,
Mm-hmm.
hitting crushing hammering only the grass energy. So doing that, getting rid of a super rod for against Puff was just over, and just like he plays a Relicanth in his deck, which is super sick because you can shred with your Giratina V Star.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, it was just that. It was a replay of round. What was round three with them. I recognize I could have done that too in Swiss in round three, but it would take a lot longer. So once I recognized that was my win con and top cut, I just sped through my deck as quickly as I can, and I showed him. I was like, "Look, I have this win con. I'm eventually going to mill you out with Chi. Do you have an out?" And so he thought a boss, I believe, as an out to kill one thing though, so he wouldn't have like the win, and I would just reset again because my hand was probably like the size of most people's decks, which is like, at that point my hand's usually like 25 cards.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, no, I recognized that, I showed him, and then Leo just told him, was like, hey, look, like there's not a lot of time on the clock. He has a win con, just give him the win. And I really appreciated the respect to like show like, hey, like I know I'm playing an annoying deck. I know like there's a chance for y'all to like move forward in the finals, but I am showing you I have a win con, and it's not that I can't do it. It's that there's not enough time, despite me playing as fast as I can. So I appreciated them like that respect of just like, yeah, just you have no win con left. Don't be the bad guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and technically speaking, because it's like in Top Cut, like there has to be a winner, right? So I don't know. Well, I mean, it wasn't really a non-sanctioned event, especially 3v3. So it would have just been like whatever the house rules said. I mean, and which I personally don't know. Like it would have been a call, but I mean, I didn't watch that matchup. I know towards the end, I kind of chimed in on it or looked at it because it was what you and Puff, the only ones playing left, right at the end, like just kind of.
Yeah, we had like a crowd of people super nervous trying to loot my deck properly while not looking like a fool in front of people.
Well, yeah, but I'm sure if Billy could chime in, I'm sure like some of us, including Billy, would be like, "Don't worry, they probably have no idea what you're doing."
That's fair, yeah.
So, but I get what you're saying. Like, no, but yeah, I mean, I guess it would have been interesting because if it was like a sanction event, I know it would have been time and then 0, 1, 2, 3, and then if there was no resolution, then it would have probably been not favored to the stall deck because I know, like in Pokemon rules, sanction rules, it's like whoever has the most prizes taken.
Mhm.
So, but since it was a non-sanctioned event and clearly you had a win con, that's kind of cool that Puff did that and Leo. So but yeah, so that looked like that was probably a game to watch for sure. Then like I said, I chimed in at the very end, of course, but that seemed like it'd be probably the highlight of the day of that day. I'm assuming, like the match wise, like it was just
Yeah.
so.
That was the funnest match for sure.
Mhm.
Especially with Caesar telling me that, like, because I told Puff I could go infinite, and he was like, well, Caesar's like, no, well, you can hit like double tails on Silene, and I was like, that's cool, but I still have Team Yellground to put back the Silene, to then try again, to put back the Balbats, try again, try again, try again, and he was
Mhm.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and that combo's been there for quite a while. Even like it's, I mean, even with Mewtwo v Union back in the day. So like, yeah, it's been there quite a while. Except now, like you said, the hammers is the thing to go. So especially with Zard running very low energy, and resources management. But and surprisingly enough, I was wondering, like, now that I thought about it, because I know one player did play it, but I guess the thought of Chimpao didn't really go in your head, right? Or like, because Chimpao runs a lot of energy and has a lot of resources to get it back, but we didn't see a Chimpao except for Victor Limon running it, and maybe no, I don't think no Leo wasn't there, but yeah, very interesting that I was expecting a little bit more Chimpao because they do have a decent matchup against Zard if they pop off, but I don't know. I don't know how that matchup against his Block Snorlax. I guess it's all right. I'm not too sure because it runs a lot of energy. But you do play Fortune Sisters to get rid of their items, so I guess it just have to be. It just be interesting to see that matchup. I guess on paper.
For sure. On like paper, I thought it was a good matchup just because you can lock the Bidoof. Erica's invitation just
Hmm.
brings it up. And then if they want to force to B barrel it, it only does 100 sometimes because you have to coin flip for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even then, 100 doesn't one shot your lax, so you just keep looping your lax and penny, just like any other normal matchup.
Hmm.
I was a little bit worried about the deck though, because it one shots like everything in the room. But yeah, I think people don't play it because it's like I think that's one of the most skill intensive decks in Pokemon right now because of the sequencing.
Hmm.
So that's probably like it's like a fake like easy deck to play, right? Like it's like
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
it looks simple, Chien Pao, get rid of energy, but it's like sequencing matters a lot, and if you don't do that properly, you're gonna lose probably every match.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, definitely, I agree. Yeah, especially Guardy too. I mean, Guardy's kind of out of the moment, but like, yeah, you have to like, if you don't put this energy in, then you get punished, or vice versa. So I can see that. Okay, cool, man. Well, let's move on. So then after that, y'all are feeling good. You're like, okay, we got this. And then pretty much y'all ran into the last team. Now, that one I did watch a little bit at the beginning of it. That was against Team Cascade. So that was against Raymond. And then the other two gentlemen, I think it was Cairo. And I forgot the other gentleman's last name. But it was pretty much one of the top teams in Team Cascade. I know those two gentlemen that I've talked to. I played at Brownsville. I know they're probably one of the better players, I guess. So I was very curious how that matchup was going to go. But talk me through it pretty much. Did you ever play them in Swiss? No, right? I'm assuming your team never played them.
No, yeah, the only Cascade team. So we played the Cascade team that had the Future Box deck in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember their names at all, but we played against them. They had like a Rotom V Star deck, the Future Box, and a Zard, and Jesus
Okay.
and I won those matchups relatively quickly, which is weird. I didn't think it was going to be Future Box when they have like 8 switches, but here we are. I Misfortune Sister 3 of them at once, so that's crazy. But yeah, no, we would have played a second Cascade team, but I think that was Oddsy's team, so we had no idea who these people were.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then, pretty much like when that matchup started, I know Jesus is going against Raymond. Raymond was running the Lost Box Pile. He had been playing that deck for a while. He was running the Iron Hands, the Roaring Moon, and then I think, and then you were going against I forgot the gentleman's name, but you were going against another Giratina deck. But correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming he started with the Radiant Gardevoir, right? Was that his opening Pokemon when he
Yeah,
started?
so
Oh, man.
just right off the bat, he's like complaining to his team. He's like, "Do I just scoop? This is an unwinnable matchup." And I'm just like, I'm laughing. I'm like, "It's not if you play well, because if I don't know what he was on, but
Right,
I was
right.
like, if you just play whatever matchup it is well, you can still win it." And then he's like, he starts and he shows his teammates and he looks super upset. And I'm like, "What the heck is going on?" And at the start, yeah, he flips over that Radiant Gardevoir, and I was like, "Oh, that sucks." Yeah.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Like it, yeah. So I saw that. I was like, oh, okay. And then Steph was going against, I want to say, Zard Mirror, pretty much. Cairo, I want
Yeah,
to
they
say.
were both on Bibzard, I believe, as well.
Oh, okay, okay. So yeah, so when you in your matchup, pretty much you just okay, like Radiant Guards was there, Radiant Guard was there, and as long as he tried to take prizes, I know, but I mean his resources, I'm assuming, were just not enough to against your resources, pretty much with the counter catcher play and whatnot. So it was just a matter of time that I know he played it to the end because I was there. I mean, he played it to the very end. So, but at that point, like, were you just like, okay, let me just check on Steph and Jesus, see how are they doing, and you just kept the tempo of play, or at that point, what were you thinking as like strategy wise? Like, okay, like I think I'll be fine, but did you? I guess did you have more time to look at the other matches, or you just kind of focus on yours in finals?
Yeah, so a couple things happened right at the
Mm-hmm.
start. So on top of the complaining and the starting the Gardevoir, I learned really quickly that my opponent had no idea how to play against my deck.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say this is because for 6 turns back to back, I got Iono'd, judged. And I was
Oh,
like, okay,
okay.
that's kind of strange. I don't know what you're digging for. He had a boss in hand for the longest time when I would like airy him every once in a while. So yeah, it showed that he didn't know how to play the matchup. So I felt pretty comfortable, just like I'm gonna win this matchup. I didn't know my prizes at the time, but once I get back to my match after I talk about the other two, my match could have gone poorly. So I look at Steph's mirror, and she's not opening the greatest. Her opponent's playing, and she's not, which is pretty detrimental for Zard in the mirror. So it's
Mm-hmm.
one of these things where it's like, okay, I trust that she knows how to get herself out of her bind enough because I always say and I always joke that she's better than me at Pokemon. She has more League Cup tops than I do, which is hilarious because I'm just like, well, I'm supposed to be decent at card games, and she's out here just destroying people. Um, so I trusted her. I respected her judgment. So I let her take reins of that because I wanted to see what Jesus was doing. And so the second I look over and he starts Flutter Mane against a Comfey, we are the happiest team in the room. That was absurd. He's like, oh my god, I just opened Flutter Mane against Comfey. So now I'm just like, okay, cool. My teammates are going to do fine. I trust them. But yeah, so we're just sitting there. My first misfortune sister against our buddy, I hit 2 super rods, so now I feel very safe in this matchup.
Wow.
He was really heated, and I don't even blame him. I'd be mad too. But yeah, I hit
Yeah.
those 2, and I was like, cool, this is exactly what I was looking for. I didn't mean for it to be rude when I said it, but I was just really happy that I hit 2 super rods.
Right.
Because that kind of just like locked the matchup. So I believe people made fun of him on the player A side for playing a card he wasn't supposed to be, and I had no idea about this.
Yeah. Me and Puff. What happened was me and Puff were just looking, and then like Puff had caught it, and then he pulls me to the side, and I'm like, okay. So I double check it, and then I pretty much went to. I mean, because again, like I wasn't really judging there. Like I know, I believe Robert the judge was stepping out, and he had asked me like, hey, can you like just oversee the finals? I'm like, yeah, sure, that's fine. So when I heard about that, I went to go talk to the owner, Merced, and I told him, hey man, this is what we have. What do you want to do with this? Because eventually, your house, your call. Like, what do you want to do? And I mean, he kind of made the call, and I had to pretty much give the crap news to Raymond because it was pretty much a game loss. And surprisingly enough, like I'm sure, like if anything, for him to get that far is like, I mean, first of all, that card didn't have a regulation card, so that's why it was kind of hard to tell if it was rotated or not. It was an older version of it, so the energy recycler. But to me, I'm like, yeah, I knew that was busted because that's how Kyogre popped off back in the day with that card. Like especially against Mew. So I was like, oh, that's still in the deck, but it was just a little unfortunate for Raymond. So I had to tell him the crap news. I was like, hey man, sorry, and yeah, so game lost there. So I guess when you heard about that, you're just like, okay, great, like just like it was kind of, and even then, like I looked at Raymond's board state, and some of us were like, yeah, it was kind of like if the game played as is, like it was not in his favor anyways. Looking at his board state because he had like he didn't use his Roaring Moon, and like I know like Jesus was already ahead of price count, like at a point like it was automatic checkmate. So it was kind of like either or, if the game still went on, like Jesus would have won fair and square with the board state.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he was super far ahead too. When I noticed, I think it was like 2 to 6 or 2 to 5 prizes or something like that.
Yeah. It was not even like, it was just like oof. Like, and I didn't watch the beginning of that. It looked, I guess Raymond just had a rough start, which normally he doesn't with that deck. Like he usually kind of just pops off, but in that case it didn't happen. And then I guess when that happened, and then who wrapped it up quicker, Stephanie, or did like as far as like getting the second game one, like
So yeah, I can't fully remember. I'd have to ask her, but I think she lost. If not, yeah, I think she lost because there was no way for her to like get to like Rare Candy Zard because her hand was so like low on resources. So she either lost or she was still finishing her match, which I want to say it was the second part where she was still finishing her match because we were like kind of like taken aback from like the whole, oh, this guy was playing a card you're not supposed to be playing over here.
yeah.
So
yeah.
but yeah, that happens, and so my middle opponent and Steph's opponent are kind of like, oh, that kind of sucks. And so since my opponent already feels like this is an unwinnable matchup, he goes and grabs the Skwovet and starts looping it, right? And I realized a little late that my Silene is in my prize cards, so I have no way to do my Crushing Hammer loop. But I also recognize the fact that there's no energy in his deck because I Misfortune Sistered so many times, and his deck was so thin where I would have seen energy more often than not. So I just go, you know what? I'm just going to go in. I'm going to Erica's Invitation, a Arceus to the active. I'm going to pass a turn. I'm going to start Chi-Yuing him the next. I forgot Charon's Care was a card, so I almost got punished by that. So I promote the Chi-Yu, I put energy on it. He has like 8 cards left in deck. I was like, you know what? If I don't do this here, I might lose the game, and I don't want to lose the game and leave it up to like a Charizard coin flip. So I mill his first 2 cards, and I hit Boss, Charon's Care, and I was like, oh, I guess I won, because now I hit both of his outs.
Wow. So pretty much for him, it was like the perfect storm for him to like lose his super odds, and then like y'all went at it in the middle, and then towards end game it's like, okay, he still had a chance. So yeah, so it seemed kind of like and again, it's just I know that team and I know some of those guys there. Like I know they're kind of not new to the scene. I mean they played card games before, but as far as the tournament scene as big as that, like it just seemed like the Radiant Gardevoir really kind of got to his head for lack of a better word. Just kind of like, I mean he still had a chance to win. We'll never know, right? But this is why we play the game, and this is why we test, and this is why we practice, and this is why we keep playing the game. So, but hearing all your conversation, it seemed like he still had a chance, but that kind of sealed the deal once you got rid of those two cards there. So, and obviously that made it like what he had 4 cards left now, 6 cards left in his deck. So.
Yeah, he was just like out of resources. He had like an energy or two maybe, but he's like he spread his energy too thin. And yeah, I think people need to realize that like playing against Snorlax is a skill matchup. Just because I sit down with a Snorlax deck does not mean I'm going to win. Just because I'm playing Snorlax, you can outplay me. You can count my resources. You can do everything to prevent that. And like I said, that's what Jesus did in top 4. So if you just play the matchup correctly, there's always a chance to win. I feel against this deck, despite it feeling like the actual best deck in the format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. It's and I know like going into this format, like like control and even mill, like it is probably going to be one of the pillars. Like you have to learn that matchup, like because this deck's not going to go away as long as Zard is available. Because Zard, swings really hard, has a built-in damage modifier, has a lot of built-in mechanics that. Why would you not play it? And then like, well, the only hinder is like you run very little energy, and well, this is where Black Snorlax comes in, So, so to anyone out there, like I really recommend that you learn this matchup at some point or find somebody and play against it. So yeah, definitely. So okay, man. Well, yeah. Like anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap it up as far as the tournament scene and pretty much shout outs there for before we wrap up the tournament scene, like pretty much.
Yeah, I'll just touch on what you said right now about like the playing the matchup. I know the deck's boring. I know the deck's like super sleepy to play against. Play it, play the matchup. You're gonna see it. For anyone that travels to events and stuff, I know I don't plan to, but I know a lot of y'all do. Play it, play the matchup, learn it. Maybe you'll like the deck and play it. That was one of the reasons I didn't want to play the deck because I was like, why the heck am I gonna play such a hard deck when I can just do Ray Candy Zard all day? I'm happy with my choice, obviously. My team was great. Everyone pulled their weight. I felt. Winning like very pivotal, very key matchups. Don't play a card game for 2 months and come back and win a 60-player case tournament feels amazing, especially to do it with my girlfriend and a friend that I've known probably my entire life. I've known Jesus since I was a little kid.
Oh, okay.
Back when we played Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah. Cool. Well, awesome, man. So yeah, so congrats again on that, and yeah, for this being the biggest tournament, like even more bigger than a sanction event, more in a cup and league challenge. Like it was cool to see everybody and see everyone go at it. So hopefully we can do this again in the future, and hopefully, pretty much now the question is, two-peat. That's kind of the question, and
oh, for sure.
Yeah, like it's
there's another thing with your Stronghold. We're coming back.
Yeah, for sure.
Y'all better learn the control matchup by then.
Well, I mean. You say that, right? And then, look what happened. Like...
Yeah, everyone will have one switch in their deck and be like, why did I lose the control matchup? And it's like, well...
Yeah, so... But cool, man. All right, well, before we wrap it up, anything else you want to see out there? Any shout-outs you want to give? This is your time to do it. And anything you want to see out there to the world?
For sure, yeah, no. Shout out my team, obviously. Shout out Stronghold. Merced Jr., he pointed out a Sharon's Care that, or not Sharon's Care, a Turo, the guy bounced back in energy. That might have helped me win a little bit. But no, yeah, shout out Stronghold, shout out Merced. Merced gave me praise at the end of the day for playing the deck apparently flawlessly. I'll take his word for it. Deck was fun as heck. My teammates are great. I look forward to more. I'm probably going to play more Pokemon now that we did this because that was just probably the most fun event that I've played in a long time. 3v3s are my favorite. They promote, like you said, teamwork and companionship. It's really nice to be able to win with your friends. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Unless you want me to say our team name story, which kind of
sure. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, what's now that we're at the end of it? What's the lore behind this team name? Team Valley, right?
So yeah, at the start of the tournament, we couldn't come up with a team name, and Jesus gets there, and I'm like, hey, I didn't put a team name. What do you want to be? And he's like, oh, I don't know. And so, as a joke, I say we should be Team Goliath. And as a lot of people know, they're a store in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Who unfortunately, I and some other people have some bad blood with them, but we used to be sponsored Yu-Gi-Oh players for them. So I was like, oh, that'd be hilarious. And then I was like, oh, I want to win with that team name now because it'd be so funny. And when the realization hits that we're, the people who won, and there's going to be a post that says, oh, congratulations, Team Goliath, I told Jesus to run at Merced and change our team name because I do not want PMs
Okay.
from anybody saying, "Oh, why'd you use our name?" And even Merced was like, "Oh, I was getting ready to message the owner like directly and tell him congratulations to his team winning." And
Oh my god.
I was like, I'm so glad we changed the team name to avoid any problems.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I did see Goliath. I'm like, well, okay. Like, I mean, I've heard of the store, but I didn't make the connection until you brought it. And like I know Yu-Gi-Oh was a big thing back then. I'm sure it is still, right? But
Mhm.
that's crazy. Wow, wow, that's a good story then. So that's pretty much what Team Valley is. So in the future, can we all expect you to have the same team name, or you think you'll have your own niche by then for the next
No,
three?
I think I like Team Valley. We used to call that like our teams whenever we would play Yu-Gi-Oh 3v3s or Yu-Gi-Oh like going to regionals and stuff. So I like Team the Valley. It represents the Valley as a whole, and I think we did a pretty decent job doing that, especially being players who've played card games for so long.
Right. So, all right. Well, everyone, that's going to wrap it up here at Draw 7. So, I want to thank John for being here today and give us this exclusive interview. Again, congratulations to John and his team. And for anyone out there, if you definitely want to get better at the card game, then please consider, reaching out to them if you want to play against them and learn the Block Snorlax because it's not going away. It's definitely coming back. And, got to learn it. So, again, this is KG from Draw 7. Thank you, everyone, and take care.